om Africa Oil, ett minst sagt spännande bolag. Africa Oil kommer att presenteras av Keith Hill som har 15 års erfarenhet inom bolag inom Lundingruppen, bland annat Valkyries, Tanganyika Oil och Chamaran Petroleum. Men nu är han alltså VD och även styrelsemedlem i Africa Oil. Så med det lämnar jag över. Keith.
Okay, thanks very much. It's good to see a very big crowd here. Good to see a number of people with smiles on their faces. So I assume those are all the people who had the wisdom to buy the stock after I came here last time. So for that, I congratulate you. For the rest of you, hopefully I can convince you that it's not too late. We've seen some good results, but I think we've only seen the tip of the iceberg. So while we've got a good start, I think that the main story is yet to come. So for the next half hour or so, I'll walk you through this and tell you why we're so excited and what we've seen so far. And hopefully this is the beginning of one of the better Lundin stories that we've put together so far. So we started in East Africa about 6 years ago, so this isn't something that happened overnight. We were the first people really to go into East Africa. I remember trying to raise money in the late 2008, early 2009, when the whole world was falling apart, going around to people telling them I wanted to drill wells in places like Somalia and Ethiopia and Kenya. Not many people opened their doors to me at that time. So we did have a hard time getting started, but what we found was that the rest of the world eventually caught up with us. East Africa now is known as probably the hottest exploration place on the planet, partially due to what has happened offshore as well. In Mozambique and Tanzania, there have been some major gas finds since we started. But of course, our friends at Tullow have helped us out a lot in Uganda, finding a lot of oil. And also the Yemen and Sudan projects have also done quite well. So now this seems to be the place to be. But the good news is we were here first. So the Lundin Group, we don't like to follow the herd. We like to go out and go to places first where there is no competition. Whenever I see a bid round occurring, that's usually a signal that I have no interest in being there. My experience with bid rounds is there may be 15 companies that go to a bid round, 14 of them walk away with nothing, and one of them walks away overpaying for the asset. So what we like to do is go in first, see an opportunity, do good solid geology, and then move in and take our position. And we're able to do that in East Africa. The countries we're really focused on are Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia. And the thing that got our interest when we first started looking at this is that no one had drilled a well here in the last 20 years. So we started kind of puzzling, why is this area so ignored? Especially because just to the north of us, 6 billion barrels of oil have been found during that time in Yemen. Just to the west of us, 6 billion barrels of oil have been found in Sudan. Again, to the west of us in Lake Albert, our friends at Tullow were finding 1 or 2 billion barrels of oil in Uganda. And you might notice I've taken the liberty of moving Madagascar up where it was in the Jurassic, about 400 kilometers. But this system here, Madagascar, same system as what we have here, 24 billion barrels of oil. So that's what caught our eye, is this little small island of no activity surrounded on all sides by multi-billion barrel oil fields. And then what further caught our eye was all of these systems seem to extend into these countries. The Yemen Jurassic system extends right into northern Somalia. The Cretaceous Sudanese system comes right through the heart of Kenya in what they call the Anza Graben. This rift here is actually broken into two arms. It's the same rift. A rift is basically where a continent's trying to break apart. So this part of Africa was trying to break apart from the rest of Africa, didn't succeed. But what they did was it broke here and it broke here. So these basins formed at the same time. So there's some publicity you can't buy. We farmed out this block to Tullow, and they said the geology is identical to Uganda, but it's 10 times the size. And that's what's got us really excited, is that if we are successful, this is one of the biggest unexplored basins left on Earth. And now that we've drilled the first well, it's got us quite excited. So we were able to get a massive acreage position, about 300,000 square kilometers of land, or about 74 million acres. And one thing I think is important is we do have these 4 distinct rift systems. This isn't just a one-shot deal. We have 4 different systems that are unrelated to each other. Each has a chance of success or failure that's not related to each other. So the first couple of years, we basically spent shooting seismic, shooting FTG, bringing in partners, and getting ready for this drilling program. And now that's where we are. We've just started the drilling program. We've just drilled our first 2 wells in Kenya and Somalia, and it looks like we've made 2 pretty good discoveries. The Kenya one is fairly sure. The Somalia one still needs to be tested, and we'll go through each of those and tell you what's going on. But we are going to be beefing up. We've just signed another rig contract for an Egyptian rig to come into Kenya, and we're just about to sign a further contract to bring a rig into Ethiopia. So by September, we'll have 4 rigs working full-time, and you'll see a lot of news flow. Starting in the 4th quarter, pretty much every month we'll be drilling a high-impact well and making an announcement to the market. We do have a strong balance sheet, but with this acceleration, there is going to have to be some financing done, probably not till the end of this year. We'd like to drill a few more wells and see some more positive results before we go out and raise money. I think Lucas likes the idea of raising money at $20 a lot more than he does at $8, and with a bit of success, maybe we can get there before the end of the year. I do want to talk about the Tullow partnership. I think that's been a very crucial partnership for us. Tullow is probably the most successful exploration group in the world. I'd probably put Lundin first or second. Ashley Heppenstall and the boys at Lundin Petroleum have made probably the most significant single discovery in the last decade in the Norwegian North Sea. But these guys have had about an 88% worldwide success rate, which is really unheard of. I mean, in development projects, when you're drilling between 2 existing oil wells, you usually have about an 85% chance of hitting a well. But going out into remote basins like they have and drilling at an 88% success rate, unbelievable. They actually have a higher rate in Uganda. They're actually over 90%. So it's not just luck. These guys are very good explorers, and they know these basins better than anybody because of their experience in Uganda. So we brought them in as a partner. I think they've helped us out significantly. I think they've shown us some things they learned in Uganda that have been quite helpful for our exploration. They also bring, we did give them operatorship, which is something we normally don't do. We like to keep control of our own destiny, but I think in this case, it was the right decision to do. So they operate all 6 of these blocks. We operate everything else that's in the portfolio. So I just want to go through each one. We'll break these up into geological trends. The tertiary trend is the first one I want to go through, which is, again, that one that's analogous to the Tullow discoveries in the Albert Graben. I think just to get a size appreciation, this is the North Sea at the same scale. And you can see this basin that we own 100% of is basically the same size as the entire North Sea. We've got 80 leads and prospects that we've developed on there, and what of course is quite interesting is we drilled the first one, and it looks like a pretty major discovery. So it makes us feel pretty confident that there's going to be many more to come. I mean, for all of the oil in this entire basin to be concentrated in one prospect, and us to just coincidentally drill that prospect as our first well is probably not reasonable. I'm not saying we've proven the whole basin yet. I think we've kind of proven this part of the basin. We do need to drill some more wells before we know how big this is, but it certainly is a good start. So I'll start here kind of in our core area that I think we've proven, which we call the Lokichar subbasin, which is really mostly in blocks 10BB and 13T. So this area here is an area where we think we essentially de-risked the prospect, the basin. It did have an old well here drilled by Shell in 1992, which did discover oil and kind of helped prove this hydrocarbon system. Additionally, we've drilled a bunch of shallow wells. They were actually seismic calibration wells. 6 wells now have had oil just bubbling up to the surface, nice light oil. So we know that there's oil in the system. And then this is where we drilled our first discovery, the Gamia-1, that has had a fairly dramatic impact on our share price. So probably almost more important than this discovery is we have 8 identical prospects, what we like to call our string of pearls, right along this fault. We have 8 more prospects that look just like this. And if this was a 20% chance of success going in, now that we've de-risked the prospect, these are probably 50 to 75% chance of success now that we've proven the system is working. So it's a very good first result, but I think it is a portent of things to come. For all of you budding geologists and geophysicists in the group, I'm going to be showing a lot of seismic, and for those of you that just think it's a bunch of garbage-looking squiggly lines, I apologize, but for those of you who get as excited as I do when they see these things, I'm going to subject you to a few of these. So the prospects we're drilling is actually a strange geological prospect. It's what's called a three-way dip closure, so it's actually not a simple closure. It's up against the main bounding fault of the basin. So basically what it is this is all basement. This is all granitic basement or metamorphic basement, and the sands just pinch up against this fault. So it's kind of a strange trap in that there's a risk that oil can leak up along this fault. It probably wouldn't have been one that we would have drilled had it not been for Tullow. But Tullow has experience with this play, and I'll show you an example in a minute of it working very well in Uganda. So if you look at it, this line here is this one, so looking at it in the dip direction. If you look at it in this direction, it looks a lot more conventional. So this is the Gamia structure. This is actually one of those other string of pearls, Kangami, this guy here. And you can see this nice rollover here. You can see some nice bright spots, some nice flat spots, good geophysical indicators that this is going to be attractive. So this is one of the string of pearls. This is one of the string of pearls. This one we just discovered is, and this one is. And again, the reason that we like this is because what Tullow found in Uganda. They drilled this little green dot right there, not the big green blob called Waraga. A fairly small field, fairly small prospect. And it's the same thing. This is the big basin bounding fault, and all of these sands just pinch up against this fault. And what they found was about 27 meters of net pay. From that 27 meters, they tested 3 zones at over 12,000 barrels of oil per day. Now, we've got more than 4 times that amount of pay, and but we have similar type of reservoir quality, we have similar type oil quality. We expect the results to be as good or better than what they had in this well. This is what we actually found. This is the Gamia 1 well. So we drilled down through, we started hitting oil shows right here at about 855 meters, and we drilled a very thick section, over 600 meters of gross pay, and basically every sand in there was filled with oil. Our pre-drill estimate of what we thought we might find is 17 meters of net pay, net oil pay. What we found was actually greater than 100 meters just in this section alone. Very good quality reservoir, 23 to 29% porosity. The sidewall cores look like they're very nice, well-sorted quartz sands. Again, oil quality about 37 degrees API, nice light oil. It is waxy like it is in Uganda and in Sudan, but that's really more of a transportation issue than a quality issue. The one thing you do need to do is keep this oil hot. So if you let this oil cool down in the pipeline, you may have a 600-kilometer long candle, which is not a desired thing. Now we have drilled on since then. We've gone through this Lacone Shale, and we're actually just drilling in this section right now, which was actually the primary objective of the well. So we are going to drill this well to TD by the end of this month or early next month. We'll have drilled through that section, and we'll probably do another press release at that time saying what we found in the lower section. We have seen encouragement here on the drilling, and I think this number will probably go up, but we have to run logs before we actually know whether it's reservoir quality or not. So I think this is wildly above our expectations. To give you a kind of an example, the best single well in Uganda that Tullow drilled, in the 38 wells that they've drilled and made discoveries, the best single well they had was 44 meters of net pay. So this is more than twice as thick as any well that they drilled in Uganda. In fact, Tullow's been telling the market they think Kenya should be conservatively twice as big as Uganda, but possibly 5 times as big as Uganda. So again, this is a lot of pretty bold talk for only drilling 2/3 of one well. I mean, this is relatively early, and we try not to get ahead of ourselves.